Hello, this is Family Electric Ghost. We have Sigrid Tryggr on the line.
That's correct. Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself?
I'm doing very well. I've been doing all kinds of recording, and that's what we typically do. um, but yeah, we have fun in our studio, and we like to interview indie artists from around the world. And so we I appreciate you coming on with Flower of Life Artworks, and we're
No, I appreciate you guys having me.
well, it's cool because we think we started doing this podcast to kind of shine a light on independent creative people from multiple art forms, and
Yeah,
you're the second artist we've had come on, and we've talked to actors and producers and all types of folks. So we're glad to have you on.
thank you.
So you're an influencer, an artist, and a small business owner. Your business is an Etsy shop, Flower of Life Artworks, and we had
Yeah,
actually done a blogger on our GoDaddy blogger page that kind of talked about each piece that you sent us. But
yeah.
usually when I talk to artists, I kind of go back a little bit and say, like, how did you get into um, the type of art that you're doing? Like, what's the story behind your what you're doing today with your art?
Okay, so a bit about that. It was started out as grief, actually. Um, I didn't really know how to explain my emotions. I'm really bad at that. And someone had died near close to me, and a bunch of other stuff was going on, abuse and all that, and it was just getting so bottled up. And so I used to sketch, and 9 years of that, and I was still terrible. I can't sketch to save my life. Don't ask me. I will point you into the direction of another artist. I know plenty of sketchers that are amazing. I will point you to one of them. They need that commission more than me. Um, and so I decided to pick up what I thought I needed for painting. I knew nothing of it. I still know nothing of it. Do not let my art phase trick you. I picked up basic colors, brushes, an easel, and canvas. And by basic, I mean red, blue, black, white, yellow.
Well, I think a lot of artists,
All my colors.
well, a lot of artists are kind of don't like to give themselves a lot of credit. Sometimes, I've talked to musicians that have a hard time praising their own work. I think that's kind of the nature of some artists. You just have a hard time doing that. But when I look at like "Swallow by the River," I mean that's like I love it. I think
That was my first piece ever.
yeah, it has like has a character to it. It has a feel. I mean, I love birds. I had
Mm.
a couple parakeets and some other
And
um,
as you see, I still do birds.
yeah, birds have always been. I actually like birds more. A lot of people are dog people or cat people, but I'm a kind of
Yeah.
a bird person, and so I have an affinity for birds, and I like your capturing of the swallow. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And so I just got that, and I mixed some colors, and I put the brush to the paint and then to the canvas, and Swallow by the River happened.
So
I
you
didn't know
kind of
what
a
I was
self.
doing.
So you were kind of a self-taught artist. You just kind of feel you felt you take your feelings and you put it into your work, right?
Yes,
I think
I
that's the
took
kind of
what I
purest.
felt and I made it happen.
I think that's the purest. Like when I talk to a lot of musicians, it's the same thing. There are a lot of musicians that are self-taught. They can't read. They didn't go
Hmm.
to a conservatory, but they've got something. And it's like their take on their instrument might not be technically perfect, but they can convey an emotion. And I think when I've talked to actors, it's the same way. Some actors went
Yeah,
to school for it, and some actors just seem to have natural talent.
yeah.
So it feels like
But
that you're kind of pulling your natural capability, and you found a way to get it out. as an artist.
Yeah. For
And so
me, it
what?
has to be emotion. Otherwise, I can't do it.
So you have to feel
That's not
something
right.
before you do a piece. You're kind of feeling some emotion that you're trying to convey or trying to
Yeah.
get out. So the swallow, you said it was because it's something to do with your grandmother's home nurse that was talking
Yeah.
about her son.
Her, yeah, my grandma's home nurse son was in the hospital, and they were unsure whether he was going to make it or not. He ended up passing away a few years later, but at the time, swallows are known to carry grief and watch over loved ones.
Okay, so that was the emotion behind it. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. And then like your second piece, Unchained, again has a bird or two
Mhm.
birds. So maybe you
That's
can talk.
Unchained.
Yeah, Unchained. Yeah, I'm kind of going through the ones you sent me and the ones I put up on the blog.
Yeah. Unchained. That was me and my best friend. I didn't pick specific birds for that one. But I picked that one, as you can see, holds a lot of different colors in the background than most of my pieces.
Yeah, it's kind of a
With array of emotions I felt because we had gone through a lot recently emotionally, and I wanted to like just spill all of those emotions out and for him to feel them, because it's like we've been through a lot and we've survived it. We can survive this. And it's like there's two different keys in each other's locks. Like maybe we're given keys to help each other and not help ourselves to escape from our problems.
yeah,
And
because the birds have like are flying near some shackles that are kind of broken.
yeah, and it's like in the end we've helped each other break away from our problems. And
Now,
that's how it's always been for each other.
so in
We
your
trained ourselves.
the type of paint, what are you doing? Like oils or watercolors or pastel
Acrylic,
acrylics? Is that your
yeah,
primary form? Is acrylic?
yes.
What made you choose that? You just like the way it worked, or you found a way to get the colors right?
Um, that was the one I first started with because I was told it was easiest to cover up mistakes. And then as I practiced more, I was able to figure out colors, mixing, color blending on the canvas, and then mediums. Once you start using the mediums, everything changes. And that's what you use when you get to like heavy bodied acrylics and all that.
So what kind
And
of
so,
so what kind of canvases do you use for acrylic?
right
What do
now
you?
I use duck cotton stretched. It's a very low acidity cotton, and I'm pretty sure any artist listening would know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a cotton canvas. I would love to eventually use linen canvas, but that is too damn expensive.
What would be the benefit of that? Does it bring something else out?
It's a finer quality, and I like to put quality above all else in my products. So if I could put quality into it, that would be perfect. It's like just like eventually I want to be able to stretch my canvas one day, because then I can guarantee the quality of what I'm giving my customer.
Do you ever kind of go big and do murals, or you stay within like this certain form here?
I've never done murals before. It's something I want to like branch out and try at least once to see if it's something up my alley. I am like expanding and doing bigger and bigger pieces slowly, that's slowly becoming something
So
I
what do you
see
think?
myself
Yeah,
doing.
that's interesting because yeah, because of all the things going on today, with a lot of art kind of getting intertwined with politics and people wanting to kind of show their work to the
Yeah, and
world.
I've done a piece called "Enough Is Enough," so
So
and that was famous.
what are your thoughts on like digital art? Are you primarily like more of a like a hands-on kind of
I'm very hands-on. Plus, technology and me don't get along.
Mhm.
So,
So you're
uh,
more you like the kind of intimacy of actually having the
yes,
paint and being able to mix and have
yeah,
the feel.
yeah. I like to feel the brush in my hand and get the paint on me. It's kind of like why I wear overalls so much.
Mhm.
It's my uniform in a way.
Well, I think it's a good way to connect. It's kind of like if you talk to a person that's a pianist or organist or somebody who plays like a like an instrument like a violin or like versus somebody who goes into like Pro Tools or like a digital audio workstation and is on a grid writing music versus a musician that's actually playing a physical instrument. There's
Mhm.
something about that interaction with a violin or a real piano or an
Yeah.
organ that's like it's more connected. You feel more organic. Like you feel like you're really zoning in on something. That's why I've talked to artists and there's a big debate in art and music like, well, are producers musicians or or is it really like a musician that has to play an instrument?
Yeah.
But it
I
seems
guess
as if
that'd be a different feel, I guess.
yeah, I mean, it's just different ways of doing it. There's some people that can create very, cohesive art with computers,
Mhm.
and some people that feel like, I rather use a brush or I'd rather use a physical instrument to do
Mhm.
it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Blossom's Lost. So this is you said you did this when you started making your Facebook page.
Yeah, I had made my Facebook page and everyone was getting real bored. I had just gotten back to my hometown, well, second hometown to me, Las Vegas. And it's like, you know what? Let's do a community event that's still social distancing in a way,
Mm-hmm.
art at the park. So I started doing that on my Facebook page. That was a public event, and I had mostly parents with kids show up, like one or two of them, and some of my friends. And I'm there, and I'm just staring at my canvas.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what to do. I have artist block. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, what do I do? I get a background on there, and then I just turn around. I'm looking at the duck pond for like an half an hour, 45 minutes, artist block still. And so I get out finally I get an idea, because I'm seeing flower petals going into the lake. It's like cherry blossoms. Cherry blossoms go with the blue and the silver background. And so I'm practicing with my heavy body acrylics because I have no idea what I'm doing with my life or my paint. And so I start practicing with texture and with the paint, watering it down and all that. And I post it on my Facebook page, and next day my one of my friends is like, "Are you selling your art?" It's like, "Yeah, yeah, I am. Do you
So
want it?"
is that when you started to think because your friend asked that you should actually start to sell it?
The goal was to eventually sell it no matter what.
But
I just
that kind of helped you push
never
push
felt like I was good enough.
But how did it feel when somebody asked if you were actually selling it? Did that make you feel like you were hitting the right mark?
I felt shocked. Like I couldn't believe it. It's like are you just doing this to be nice?
Yeah,
It was just weird. It was just really weird, but happy at the same time.
I think it's always like when every artist is actually at that point where suddenly they're able to actually take a piece of art and then somebody monetarily wants to value it. With like, musicians and people who get plays or movies and suddenly
Yeah.
they can
My
get
yeah.
traction.
My biggest moment of that was when I finally moved out here to Detroit a few weeks ago, and someone on Etsy, a complete stranger, because my first few sales have been to friends, a complete stranger bought a piece of art. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's when you
wait,
really start
what?
feeling good.
That is when I hit the mark.
Yeah, that's always like, when you finally, if you're a musician and you finally say, "Well, London are listening to my music," it's like, wow, and I'm living in New Hampshire and somebody in London's
Yeah,
listening to my music. I'm like, well, that's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. You could still be struggling on the money front, but the stranger just bought it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, well, I think all artists, we kind of all like are starving because the music industry only pays us like pennies or percentages of pennies.
Yeah.
that as musicians we only get from like gigs, and under COVID,
Mm,
it's very difficult. So we do other things like this.
yeah.
But you do what you need to do to keep on working on what you really want to work on.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's always been the rub. Is like people. I think artists always want to do what they're what motivates them the most, whether that makes money or not. It's kind of like if it happens, it happens. But most artists are going to keep on doing what they're doing, and then it'll suddenly start to click with an audience somewhere. Somebody starts to recognize or see what you're doing, and so actually pick up on it.
Yeah, because the true meaning of a starving artist isn't the empty belly; it's an empty soul.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what artists do is represent the feelings that they have. Um,
Mm,
I think that's what you're always trying to convey. Is like I think a lot of artists have difficulty. Like musicians typically they can write in a song, but they can't tell somebody what they put in the song. It's easier for them to actually write the lyrics to a song than actually have the conversation.
yeah.
So it's actually sometimes as a musician, I'll write a song for somebody that I might not actually say that to that person, but I'll put it in the song and then give it to the whole world. But it's actually was aimed at a particular person. But I couldn't actually tell them directly, so I kind of put it in a song. But I
Yeah.
mean,
For me,
music.
the thing is like I'm getting my emotions out, but don't ask me to tell you what the emotions are, because I'm gonna clam up.
So
Like,
do you feel free when you're doing your art? Do you feel like you're freeing that emotional
hmm I
power?
feel like I am like it, it's like pouring everything out and being replenished at the same time. It's like
That, yeah.
I'm not draining myself. I am being lifted up, and everything is being expelled at the same time.
Yeah, it's
It's
kind of like a
a
catharsis.
wonderful
Yeah,
feeling.
I think it's like cathartic to do art. I think creative people take pain and turn it into something
Now,
that
don't
others.
get me wrong.
Yeah,
I will say, "What the fuck am I doing with my life?" In the middle of a project, maybe once or twice or 5 times in a row. So don't get me wrong. It depends.
yeah. I think all artists kind of question, what they're doing. Sometimes, is this, you work on something and you wonder if it's going to have impact. You know, that you might be
It,
feeling that
the
at the
project
moment.
is also just stressful sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you like to just flow. Like musicians, sometimes we can just do improvisation, and other times we try to do a well-crafted song, right?
hmm
So, if you're trying to do a well-crafted ballad, it's not exactly improvisational. right? So
Yeah.
you're actually trying to make a statement, and everything actually means a lot, and so you're trying to craft it. And then other times you do things that kind of off the cuff, and it just happens. And then
Yeah.
you're like, wow, that just happened, and I didn't really have to think about it. It was just like there.
Mhm.
Do you find like do you have to think too much, or you don't try to think it? You just kind of let the muse take you.
Um, there's been times where I don't think too much, and times where I've overthought it, and that's where I have my WTF moments. And that's really when I'm trying to do skin tones. Because skin tones, I just over stress because
Mm-hmm.
it's shading. It's like, okay, put 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 the brush down or move on to a different section, one or the other.
Yeah, I think that's always like a lot of artists I've talked to have felt like when they didn't overthink it and it came out, they're like, that's really what I want. But if you have to sit and like you take 6 months, you do like 50 versions of a song, and you're the kind of like maybe I shouldn't be doing this because I can't get it right. You know what I mean? If you keep
Mhm.
having to go back to it and you don't feel good about it, then it's like you rather spend time on something that took less time and kind of came out like more of what you originally were feeling, like the honesty of the moment. Like
Yeah.
if you're an artist, like if you have to take something and have to keep on recutting it, then it feels
Yeah.
like, well, there's it's kind of like, are you not, you're not even comfortable with it. So
Yeah.
how is that going to work?
For me, that's the planning session because I use a lot of reference pictures since I use realism. Um, and so my reference picture, if it takes me more than a day, I scrap the plan usually.
Mm-hmm. And then you
But
get the feel that
then,
it's not going to
then
work.
I know it's just stressing me too much. It shouldn't take me more than 5 hours, and the 5 hours is because I've downloaded way too many pictures to go through.
Yeah, that's like it kind of like overwrought. If you have to do,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like the once in a while you get something like a Bruce Springsteen Born to Run. Took him like 6 months, and has all
yeah,
these layers to it. But that's a case where it actually works. But there are cases where if you do that, then it doesn't. It gets just too overwrought, and then you're
mhm,
like, that doesn't really work. And so for every like Born to Run, you've got all these other things lying on the floor that like, oh, that didn't work.
yeah,
But so the enough is enough. I was looking at that one. Um, that one kind of is topical because it's talking about police brutality and discrimination. Maybe you talk
yeah.
about that piece.
Um, my best friend is black, um, and he was going to those protests, and I have seizures and I have mobility issues. I was forbade by 5 friends to go to those protests,
Mm-hmm.
despite really, really wanting to go. Think of me as Steve Rogers before the serum.
Yeah,
uh, that's my heart. I want to do something. I want to protect the people who don't have a voice. And that's what the police brutality movement is supposed to be about, not what some of it did become about.
yeah. Well, I
And
think
that's the
yeah,
sad part. Some of it got turned around to other things.
yeah. I think
Um,
it's always hard when things get like hijacked by other forces to have
yeah,
different
it got hijacked. It was supposed to be about police brutality and the true racism that we see. And that's not just about black culture, it's about other cultures. And that's what Black Lives Matters was about to begin with, was not just their race, but all races. And I wanted to be there to protect my friend, but I couldn't because of the fact that it wasn't safe for me. And so I made Enough is Enough in support of that, in support of the protests and all of that. That was a very hard time for me due to the fact that my mom and stepdad are on the opposite side.
Oh, so you have
And
family.
so
Yeah.
and so when they saw that, it caused a huge fight at home and getting hit. But I wore that proudly in that case.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because in the '60s, that generation, their families didn't like, they're like the anti-Vietnam War protests were kind of like a lot of families got split on those kind of political lines because they're like, oh, well, you're just supposed to agree with that and not question
Mhm.
it. And then you had a generation that's like, well, I'm going to question why we're doing things, you know.
Mhm.
And so I think this generation's kind of got that moment where they're going to question the structure and say, is that actually right? What's going
Yeah.
on? Or there's some people who are more like, well, I believe in law and order and that's it. And there's like no gray area. There's always like black and white. It's like that's what it is. And so it's
Yeah.
always a problem when you get folks that have that kind of very narrow thinking because everything's more in the grays.
Mhm.
And so it's like as artists,
Yeah. I'm aware that there's a gray area and that there and it's like that's why there needs to be talking.
yeah, it's hard when people
And
go into their
that's
camp
what I
and just
want
say, well,
people to do is talk.
we get some people that don't even want to have the conversation.
Mhm.
And that's where it becomes a problem. Like if you're just going to sit there and you can't even have the conversation itself is radical, then that is like
Yeah.
where you're supposed to go from there.
Yeah.
But as an artist, I totally, I've been into political aspects. I mean, some of my music I kind of labeled as political electronic music, which was a way to like a lot of modern music is like electronic dance music or trance music, and I kind of grew up with the '60s kind of mentality of like a Dylan and and people actually, Joan Baez and Neil Young, they came out and they said things in music, and I felt like, okay, well, if you do just EDM, like, can't you say something? Can't you? It doesn't just have to be about the beat. You can actually say something. And so that's why I decided that I would have kind of this expansive sound that would allow me to go anywhere. That I don't have to be
Okay.
just pigeonholed into one genre. I can do anything. I can mix punk with rock and jazz and hip hop and whatever. This gives you
Okay.
it gives you a wider palette sonically. Um, so let me talk about the Edge of Beauty. This was like your second piece, but you talk about how you undersold it. So maybe talk about that a little.
Yeah, I sold it at $80 thinking it would cover shipping costs. Um, Turned out when we went to go and look at shipping, um, it covered profit costs.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my moment of learning, okay, I'm underselling myself.
Oh, so you
And
had to
that
start
I
figuring
need
out
to,
the
yeah,
economics of what you need to do and like what are your actual, cost.
I needed to learn how to value myself
Yeah.
as an artist. And that's when I learned that artists that make things like paintings and sketches and all that really do damage to the art community by underselling. That was
Yeah.
my first lesson with it. And so now I sell higher and I don't break under a certain point. I have a minimum cost now. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want below that, go find someone else.
Yeah, I think artists have to get to the point where they feel comfortable, valuing the work they put in and actually getting, being able to make a
Mm,
back what more than what they put into it. In some
yeah.
art forms, it's kind of hard to judge that because you spend like 6 months doing a song. Well, how much time can you charge for that?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
a musicians we've run into a problem where our equipment is so expensive and the time it
Yeah.
takes and the production cost. A lot of times we don't get back what we put into
Yeah.
it.
Uh,
But we do it because we love to do it, and we find other ways to supplement it. But it's always
oh,
like a
I
big.
get it. Right now, I'm in the process of getting easels, different types of easels, and all that. And it's like I'm still in my investment period,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh God, I'm still in red right now. I'm not going to be making up for any of this.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I'm
Like once you, if
I'm
you,
getting stuff for like recording videos because I've noticed that helps with getting views and all that. It's like,
oh yeah, your social media. Like I noticed your Instagram and your.
yeah, I've noticed that recording and doing videos has helped me so much.
What
It's
do you
like,
think about like social media, like Instagram? Do you think I have found that when I talk to musicians and artists, Instagram seems to be like the platform of choice for creatives because of the
yeah,
ability to do like short video and 10-minute video and in the.
that's where I upload most of my videos to.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
Have you found
so
there's a good response on Instagram? Cause it seems like there's a lot of artists on
I
Instagram.
get a lot of views. I haven't gotten a lot of reactions or anything.
Oh, so you get a lot of views, but you haven't got people to actually convert the views to actually actions.
Yeah. So I'm still learning on that.
Yeah, I found like things like Perlu. You actually can get there's these new type of systems that are out there for like influencers and stuff that actually are better at converting. It's not that you don't still use like Instagram or you use your Twitter or you use your Facebook or whatever you're on, but then you use another tool like a Perlu or IntelliFluence or all these other ones that actually can get you people to actually, work on a pitch. That seems
Okay.
that's what I found that I started to convert. Because as a musician, like I started on SoundCloud and then I got
Mhm.
noticed and I actually got this podcast because people found me on SoundCloud. So,
Okay.
so sometimes you start somewhere where you're not making any money, but then it gets you to another platform where you do.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on another platform right now that's similar to that. They're helping me develop a better business pitch right now.
Yeah, that's cool.
So,
Yeah, I think in today's world, there's so many apps, there's so many tools, there's so many like different influencer type of tool sets, and then sites like Patreon type sites where you can get people to actually become, uh, you know,
mhm.
patrons. The artists are always looking for that.
Yeah.
um, you're always looking to get yourself like somebody's always actually going to fund your endeavor. Um,
Mhm.
so have you looked into like Patreon type of things?
I've looked into it some. I don't know how to use it well.
Mhm. It is
uh,
somewhat complicated. I would just be honest. I actually had a Patreon for the last 3 years, and I've never gotten anybody to really do anything on it. I
yeah,
actually have been more successful on other platforms, so I can understand. I just haven't gotten that to click.
yeah, yeah. I've been into Patreon a couple times, and it's like, how the hell do I use you?
There's some people just
And then I
they
back
get
out.
they're able to get on it and they're able to get traction. I got on there and I spent a bunch of time on it and I'm like, well, I never got any traction. And then I
Yeah,
went and did something else and I did get traction. So once they're like, okay, I'm gonna go with what works. And
yeah,
so you like if it takes too long and it doesn't do anything, then I'm not that I'm gonna put them down, but like, I maybe don't know how to use it. So it was like,
yeah,
okay, I tried, but I couldn't do it. So I can get that.
yeah.
But so if I move to another piece, Murdered by Love, um, this one you say was very emotionally painful, so maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah. Um, so I actually went through a breakup for a moment. We ended up back together, but at the time, we broke up because we thought it was the best for each other. We come from two very different religions, that would prevent us from being together at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as in, we would never be able to get married or have kids type religions. And so we were like, maybe we should end this now rather than later, because we were still very new to being in a relationship. And so it would hurt less if we ended it then.
It's interesting.
And
You in your write up, you talk about like you've heard of breakup songs, but not breakup art.
yeah,
And you say you didn't
and
sleep and you relapsed hard. So it's interesting because that's like kind of a musician theme. And
yeah,
yeah, that's interesting. Do you tend to think of like music ideas in your art?
in a way, yeah. Music used to be a big thing for me. I used to want to be a songwriter and an art and a singer. Um, but yeah, I ended up relapsing hard that same night. I didn't sleep for 3 days. um, and I made that painting in that 3 days. And
Mm-hmm.
we got back together, and I was upfront with him that I had relapsed because I had promised myself beginning of the year, because this year I wanted to get sober and clean, that I would be honest every time I relapsed. And he said that's what he was worried about, and that we both we both felt stupid for breaking up, and that we would figure it out our way to make it work despite our religion. So,
So
but
was it
that
that
was the most painful painting I'd ever made, and it was the one that sold 2 days in to moving here, thank God.
oh. So was it because of the people around you and your family and your friends and within your circles that you felt that they were going to prevent it, the relationship, that it was like from these outside yourself, that there were people in your life that weren't going to allow it?
Our closeness to our own religion,
Mm-hmm.
we thought it would we would feel guilt.
Oh, okay. So you about how you would feel.
Yeah, and we don't feel guilt. We feel it's still right. And so we believe we made the right choice,
Well, that's interesting. So
even
you
with
were able to.
our connection to our God. So
So did the painting help you work through that, or do you kind of life had you work through that, and the painting is part of that?
I am so glad that the painting is finally sold and gone. I hid it from myself. I hated that painting.
Because of the
So,
moment. Did it
because
remind?
it reminded me of how much pain I was in that moment, because it caused a 2 week relapse after that.
That's interesting.
So
So, I'll talk about the next piece, the Forget Me Not. It's talking about you and your best friend got into a fight that was going to
yes,
potentially be the end of your friend. Is that a continuation of the previous theme or a different topic?
it's from the friend that I made enough for,
Okay.
and Unchained. Those three are all for the same person or inspired by the same person. He's been my best friend since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since my seizures got really bad and my health went downhill, things have been tough for us. And then when I confronted him about my addiction, he promised to always be there, because he's been through addiction as well. And so he promised that he would be there until the end, and that he would get me. He would help me see myself to the top, like help see me climb to the top.
So this person, they've really been there as a solid best friend for you.
Yeah. And it seemed like he had been pulling away. And so I confronted him. And he was making excuses and all that. And suddenly it felt like our friendship ended. And so I took my anger out on the painting. All those flowers have different meanings and all of that, like anger, betrayal, and all of that. Then the canary is meant to be like a small bit of hope left. The stairs are meant to be lost. In an old place, abandoned. And the piano is old, untaken care of. So it all has meaning that goes together.
Yeah, so it's kind of like these
And it's the hope of please don't forget me before it's too late.
Yeah, so it seems like the neglected piano is like a neglected
best friend.
Yeah, best friends kind of represents that. That's interesting. And the birds, like you like to have birds and flowers, is a continuing theme in your work.
Yeah.
So did this friend still like?
We're still friends.
Are you still friends? So you're able to work it out?
Yeah, we worked it out. Sadly, it was worked out in a very tragic way. My health has been getting worse, and so much so the doctor has said that unless my seizures gain more control, he wouldn't give me more than 10 years.
Oh, that's not good news.
And so I told him this, and he started rethinking things and how I've been breaking the cycle of a drug addict, of someone with drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And he hadn't been looking at it like that. And so he had been looking at it wrong, and he apologized for that. But that said, 10 years, 20 years, I don't care. I'm going to fight for my chance to live longer. It's why I came out to Michigan. They have a better healthcare system.
Mm-hmm. Than where you came. A better system than where you were before?
Yeah. And I'm going to fight to get more than 10 years. And I'm going to fight to make something of my business, Flower of Life Artworks, because it's better than where I came from. It's better than the life I left behind. So it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, it's hard when you have like medical issues. I mean, I actually am a cancer survivor. In my 20s, I had like a level 3 sarcoma, and I was able to fight it, and I'm still here in remission since I was 27. But it's like, I can understand, like, people didn't give me a long time and actually outlived what they thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's like if you feel like you have something to do, you can kind of will yourself into it.
That's what I plan to do.
Yeah, so I totally get what you're doing, because like I'm kind of showing that you can. Everybody's got a different situation, but like a lot of things, like if you think positive and you put positive energy, you can do things that you wouldn't expect you can do. You never know, but you try to live your life and do work out your dreams and do everything that you want to do. I think is a good way to live, because some people can have a whole life and then maybe they waste the time. But if you can be focused and know, that you never know when you're going to be gone. you know.
Exactly.
So you like every day that you're here, you can take that. That's a good day, and I can do something. Um,
Mhm. I
so
just want more than 10 years.
yeah, I mean, to have an expiration, that's not cool. I mean, I was told that kind of a similar kind of expiration date, but I was able to, kind of make the doctor kind of say, well, I guess you weren't right about that. but but it's just a matter of, like, you change what you do. I changed how I, ate, what I did, in my personal life, and I was able to kind of do some cool stuff with the medical field. They were able to do some things for me, and you never know what happens.
Mhm.
But you just take it every day as it comes, and you just fight. So I totally believe in fighting for, everybody's got to fight for their life in some way.
Yep.
So
And this
fighting
is
for,
my fight.
yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for you. I totally believe that people can do more. You know, and people can give you a limitation, and then you try to exceed it. It tends to be what artists do anyway.
Yeah.
So fighting for control, um, we can
The
maybe talk.
unfinished piece.
Yeah, what were you trying to do there?
So that one was originally for a um that was supposed to be for a competition. Uh Competition passed, so now it's just going to get finished regardless. Oh well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. Um that is actually exposing me to the fullest. Um the lights in the background that you see and the streaks,
Yeah.
that's my aura I get right before a seizure.
Oh.
Um, and then on top of that, you see the woman holding her head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's what I do when I get confused about what I'm forgetting. Like if I forget a word or a memory, or if I'm getting frustrated because I can't find the right words to speak, because seizures cause brain damage.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain damage has left issues with my memory and my ability to speak. And then after she's finished being painted, I'm going to be putting forearm crutches right behind her because it can also cause mobility damage and walking damage. And I have that as well. I have weakness in my lower extremities. And the theme of this um, contest was disability in 2030 and what it would look like to
Mm-hmm.
you. And I decided that I would paint it as me since that would be emotional for me. And for me, it wouldn't change. In 2030, my disability would still be the same because the damage is irreversible.
Yeah. So
Plus,
yeah.
we don't know if I would be alive or not. So I wanted to paint and be vulnerable.
Well, I think your work is really good at displaying, the emotional feelings that you have, and you convey it in your work, and you can feel it. So I think that you are hitting the mark with that, and I've been very impressed with everything I've seen what you're doing, and hope we can push this out to a bigger audience, to help you, get your themes across and get your work noticed. That's what I try to do with every artist I talk to, and I think it's been really great talking to you on this program. We are going to be pushing the blogger page that we built for this, in this podcast. The podcast that we're doing right now is on 11 podcast platforms, including Spotify and Apple, Radio Public, Google, many, many more. And so we're going to promote this on our channel on Instagram. And we actually have a connection between Spotify and Instagram. So when we push up the Spotify version of the podcast, it'll actually highlight to a story on our Instagram, which you can then share. And it allows you to click right to the podcast. And so it's a way for people to come right to the podcast. And you don't have to have a subscription to Spotify to listen to a Spotify podcast.
Okay.
So when we put that highlight up, we'll do a story. You can do a story on your Instagram as well. It's just a way to get people to listen to the podcast and actually, not have to pay for anything to do it.
Okay.
So that's a cool feature that we have. And we're glad that you were on the program. We're happy to have worked with you to do this. And
it was great to be on here.
Well, we wish you great success, and hope that you can keep on doing the work that you want to do, because that's like
Thank you so much.
The dream of every artist is to do what they want to do creatively, and so we'd like to support that.
Thank you so much.
But thank you for being on the program, and we hope everybody will check out the hyperlinks. Will be on this podcast. They are clickable, so we will have your Etsy shop as a clickable link. So we're going to encourage you to click on that all the way through and check out the work that you've been doing.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.